Is it okay with
Sure.
you?
Please.
Yes.
I'm good.
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome to another edition of our evening talk. Today is very special because the talk is going to be prelude to the IPL matches which you are going to be witnessing very soon. That is from 19th of this month. And we also have the fantastic panelists. Before I call upon the panelists and the author of the book, Vedam Jaishankar, let me briefly tell you what's happening in MMA next few days so that you don't miss any of the events. Tomorrow, we are having a fifth Indo-German business dialogue. It's live from Germany. Ram, I think you have to put your audio a little bit of mute. No? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Tomorrow, we have a fifth Indo-German business dialogue where the outstanding panelists are joining us from Germany. This is happening at 5:30 tomorrow evening. We already sent you. Then on the 17th of October, we got another interesting event. That is Grandeur of Action, Mediocrity to Excellence. We have Vinayji from Hyderabad. He's a philosopher, thinker, and self-management. He runs the Wisdom Foundation, very popular in Hyderabad. He's joining us. On Saturday the 19th, again, we have an outstanding talk by the Ponds veterans, Neeraj Chandra, business advisor. He's going to be talking to us on change, innovation, and disruption in my company perspective on the change around us and its implication on us. Along with him, we also have three outstanding Aravind Balaji, managing director of Lucas, also Irina Vittal, former McKinsey and independent director of number of companies, and Rajiv Agarwal is also joining us along with Mr. Hi, Vedam. Welcome. So I thought by the time you join us 2-3 minutes for the latecomers, I'm just briefing about some events, what's happening in MMA next few days. And Vedam, warm welcome. Yeah, already Prakash is already there, and Mr. Ram also joined us. So we'll come back. We'll get back to you another 2 minutes time. Okay. Then we are on the Monday the 21st. We have again excellent event, leadership by values. We got the outstanding speaker Ramesh Subramaniam from Howard Square, USA, and Ramakrishnan. Industry professional from Chennai, and Sivaraman will be moderating and chairing this session. Then on 22nd, that is on Tuesday, we have again Santana Rajan talking about consumer activism. Then on 26th, again excellent event by Mr. Candy Anand. He's going to be talking to us from Canada, and he's going to talk on leading self teams and organizations for sustainable growth and my adventure and experience. So he's the one who has traveled all over the world and worked in a number of companies. And on Monday the 28th, we have Zia. She'll be talking to us on my journey from corporate leader to entrepreneur. And she has worked in Hindustan Unilever and a number of organizations. Now she is director of Aquastil Private Limited. And this is what's happening in October, even September, even the October calendar has already been shared with you. And I won't take too much of time because the speaker, all the panelists have already joined us. One event which I won't really tell you not to be missed event is on the 12th of October is new education policy, boon, bane or what. And we have got fantastic speaker, the Varghese, who is the Vice Chancellor of National Institute of Education Planning and Administration. And plus, we have got some outstanding panelists who will be joining us. Then on 22nd, again, we have Shankar Iyer, journalist and author from Canada. He'll be joining us. And to chair, he's going to be talking about the Gated Republic, Indian public policy feature failures and private solutions. And we have Anant Nageshwaran, Dean of Kriya University and member of the Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister will be chairing the session. So this is what's happening. There are many more events. I given enough time for the latecomers to log in and so that I brief about MMA. And coming to today's event, I thought it's very, very appropriate to have this event just before IPL because the cricket fever is going to happen and the panelists are also going to talk to us how the IPL going to be looking without the audience. Does it going to make any sense? Because the cricketers only can tell the feeling what they can feel in an empty stadium, how they are going to play much more. And but what we are going to have this evening is courage, conviction, controversy, and cricket. This is our book authored by Vedam Jaishankar, journalist, author, speaker, entrepreneur. And we are indeed privileged to host him and also launch his book this evening. We got some outstanding panelists. Mr. Ram Narayanan, former cricketer and journalist and veteran. Many of them Chennai people know him very well. And we also had a privilege to have something outside the cricket, but it was very connected to cricket. Is Mr. Prakash Belawadi. He is an Indian media personality, and you all know him to see him in many of the theaters personality. And this is a panel for this evening. And the format of this evening, let me also welcome all the viewers watching the program live on YouTube, live on MMA website, MMA webinar, Facebook, Twitter, and also live on MMA radio. And if you have any question, as usual, please share your question and the number which is being shown in your screen, and we'll be more than happy to pass it on to the speaker to respond to your query. The query I would like you to be asking only to what is relevant to the theme today, and I don't want any cricket and controversies, only the themes, controversial questions here. And but notwithstanding, let me have the privilege of briefly introducing the detailed profile of all the speakers have already been shared. Due to I want to save as much as time, give it to the speakers to share their views. I'll briefly introduce the speaker and other panelists as quick as possible. Vedam Jaishankar is an experienced cricketer, correspondent with career span over 2 decades. He coached for a few years and in the Brijesh Patel Academy, Karnataka. Before the demand of journalism made him to leave the coaching and got onto the journalism. After a stint with the Deccan Herald for a few years, and he joined Indian Express, where he was a principal cricket correspondent for many years. And he has also authored the best-selling book Rahul Dravid, and the biography, and also costing a spell, a story of cricket. The Dravid biography was also officially translated into a number of languages. Mr. Ramanarayanan is a veteran Bhishma Pitama. We all know him very well, and is an old-fashioned all-rounder. At 72, he is still active in number of fields as a teacher, columnist, blogger, and author. He was a teaching and covering the cricket, adjunct professor faculty in the Asian College of Journalism, and he's also doing a number of things. I know him personally well because the part of one of the group is very, very close to MMA, is the Sanma Group. He was a corporate communication head of the Sanma Group. A first-class cricketer of 1970s, Ramanarayanan represented Presidency College, Madras University, Hyderabad, and also the South Zone. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Ram. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Then we have Mr. Prakash Belawadi. Prakash, all know him. Most of them must have seen him and known him. Prakash Belawadi is an Indian theatre, film, television, and media personality, teacher, activist, journalist from Bangalore. Belawadi has participated in many seminars, conferences, festivals in India and abroad. He has been in motivational speaker and events, and also TEDx conferences. So we have a very balanced and outstanding panel this evening. And what the format of the program is, I will now officially launch the book, what is written by Mr. Vedam Jaishankar. Thereafter, there's a book which is there. You must read, buy it online. It's available already online. Courage, Conviction, Controversy, and Cricket. And this is a book authored by Vedam. And Vedam, once again, many congratulations. We are happy that you choose MMA to launch this book in this part of the country. Thank you so much. Then we have the panelists, and now I'll hand over the session to Vedam to give a set the context. Thereafter, Prakash will take over, and I leave to the panelists to take it forward. Thank you once again for being with us this evening, and a pleasure. We are all eagerly looking forward to hearing your stories, sir. Over to you, Vedam.
Thank you very much, Captain. Firstly, thank you very much for having me inaugurate or launch my book over here. And thank you very much for inviting me to MMA. It's a great pleasure. Just one correction that I really want to make is that I've been in this meeting right from the beginning. I didn't come late. The only problem was my laptop was playing up. So I moved to my wife's laptop. So it was, it was showing as Devika and things like that. So it's actually my wife's laptop I'm using. And I realized I have to change the name. Otherwise, you'd still think that I'm not around. So I could.
No. Sorry, and it's always the wife come to your rescue, So
absolutely.
better take care of the wife.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yes.
I really agree with you. And it's actually, I feel a little nervous because I've got two outstanding personalities actually today with me in the panel. Prakash Belawadi, I've known for quite some time, but I must tell you, he's one of the most gifted people that I've met, and he's very good with whatever he does. And it's very intimidating, to actually work with Prakash because he's so gifted and he is in command of everything. And the fact that he's done so well as a character actor in the movies now does not come as a surprise to me, because I always know that he had it in him. And as a theater personality, as a journalist, he's really been outstanding. And I'm very fortunate to count him as one of my good friends. Ram Narayan, I think all you people in Madras know him. He's another absolutely gifted person. And the command that he has over the language, the amount of work he's done with cricket is astounding. And of course, you all know him also as somebody who's very active in music. So it's a great panel, actually, especially with these two gentlemen there. And Prakash, I'm sure, is also a great moderator, as you will find out very quickly. So in short, you've already shown the book, so I don't need to show the book. And I'm very privileged to be here. And I hope we have a great session. Thank you. Prakash?
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay, for that quick and efficient introduction. Thank you, Madras Management Association, for hosting this. Thank you, Vedam, for considering me for such an important event. You know, it's true that you can take your friends for granted, but I think this is a really important occasion, and I'm privileged to be a part of this. And I was just discovered that I really know Ramnarayan in in a kind of roundabout way, because I know Gauri, and Ramnarayan himself is such a versatile personality. I think we're getting an echo from somebody's
Shankar, uh,
and he is
where is
among
the
the
echo
many.
coming, Shankar? Ram, can you just mute your? Can you just mute it? Now it's fine. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. So, I just was going through, Ramnarayan's brief bio. I'm so impressed by what all he does. He's, I mean, like, it's no surprise to me that, but, he's actually was the editor of Shruti. He ran that, he's been running that publication for a long time. He's a journalist and author, and he teaches, he was teaching, or I don't know whether he continues to do that, covering cricket at the Asian College of Journalism. I found that very striking and important, because I never got around to reading Vedam's book yet, because suddenly the movie industry has opened up and we've all been summoned to go to either dub or do some patchwork shooting. And we've been traveling suddenly, all of us, so I've never got around to reading it, but I read a review of the book by another good friend who has been covering cricket, Vijay Lokapalli. And, he says that, he quotes Vedam saying that Vedam picked about 250 cricket stories to cover, and he got it down to 40 stories eventually for this book, Courage, Conviction, Controversy, and Cricket. So I'm going to start this conversation about covering cricket by asking Ramnarayan, who himself has been a player who's played under great legends like Pataudi, my all-time favorite cricketer in India, and ML Jaisimha. And I want to ask him, when we look at coverage of cricket, it's changed from a kind of pleasure of either listening to a commentary where somebody vividly brings to you ball by ball what is happening on the ground, or you read it in the morning hour. The first thing probably we all read when we, in our times, you read a version of what happened that day, so vividly brought to you by a lover of cricket, who's also gifted with writing, who also has a knowledge of cricket, that he can pick up the most crucial moments that happened in the day, and he is able to put that together in 800 or 1,000 words. I want to know if covering cricket has stopped being what it meant back then, when Vedam kind of, as a young journalist in Indian Express, was actually cutting his teeth in the job. So I want to know what you think, Ramnarayan, about this idea of covering cricket. Has it changed? And what was the challenge that Vedam, you think, had to face writing this book?
I've been muted. Me.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramnarayan. You are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. Can you hear?
I can hear you well. Ramnarayan, able to hear me?
Can you? I can hear you. Yeah.
I think
so I've been unmuted. Okay, thank you.
What I request, I think
Hello.
you can do the conversation with Vedam by that time. Let him join. I think he got frozen.
So I'll turn the question to Vedam. I want to ask Vedam the same question. You know, covering cricket has taken a completely new dimension in such a visually, moderated world. Everything is now visually mediated, and people read, people actually watch moving images for 12 hours by computer, mobile phone, or television. And covering cricket cannot mean the same thing anymore. So, what does it mean to have kind of spanned this from that generation to this? What does it mean, you think?
I think just Ram is now muted, but I think if if necessary, I think he's having a bandwidth issue. Maybe he can even stop the video, and without the video, he can go ahead. But coming back to your question, Ram, are you speaking, Ram? No, I'm getting.
Sorry.
Are you speaking, or you want to mute
I-
yourself? I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Actually, Mr. Ram, you disconnect the audio and speak directly. There's an echo coming in your system. Our technical team, can you please explain to him? Shankar?
Sir, there's someone nearby who's having the laptop, another laptop, sir. That's
Sorry?
the problem.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Group Captain, sir.
So the another laptop, no, someone is having another laptop, sir. They can use the headphones, sir.
Go ahead now, Mr. Ram.
Am I heard now?
Absolutely clearly.
Go ahead.
Your question about covering cricket in the present day. I see that is the challenge I face. I started this elective about 5 or 6 years ago, and when I started, the students knew nothing about the history of the game. They were only interested in 2020, and they were like fanboys. But in these last 5 or 6 years, I see a huge change. They are now beginning to be journalists, and they're doing a great job. And I'm very impressed with the very new lot of journalists. And they're not, I think there's a lot of hope.
So, Vedam,
Yeah,
same question to you.
Yeah, actually, Ram has a point when he says that many people are not really journalists, they're not reporters, they were fans. And like all of us know, fans are fanatical, and fans will forgive their heroes anything. But a journalist is supposed to be a lot more detached. Now, the challenges started coming in journalism when there was live telecast, like you correctly mentioned. And some of the organizations, to get over that challenge, would ask the reporter to get a quote, you know, every day to get a quote or two from one of the leading players, so that they can build around that story. But that got corrupted to such an extent that I still remember on one of my tours, and the person who said that he would give the quote every day was the coach. He said, "Don't take quote from anybody else. I would give you the quote, because these youngsters don't know what to quote, what to say." So that was taken as granted. Now, this coach would never give you a quote. What he would say is, "You give me a quote." And if you give him a quote, he'll say, "No, no, 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 that is too stiff. Give me another quote." Then you'll tell him something else. "No, that is very soft." You give him something middle. So you have to tell him. I said, "Yeah, that is excellent. That is a quote. Yeah, you can carry that quote." It actually became so idiotic, but it stuck for the entire tour. Every single day, it was not his quote at all. It was a journalist's quote, and you had to see the game as you think he would see it, and tell him, and he'll finally say, "Yeah, okay, do this, or don't put that." But of course, these are what I'm talking about is the days before the agents came into play. And today, if you want to say good morning to a player, yeah, I think you have to go through an agent, and that's the that's the lousiest part of the game today. And what is sadly lacking today is the rapport. You could have very good rapport with the players, and at the same time criticize them. they would take it. It was not a problem. If they knew that you knew your onions, they would take it. But today it has reached a stage that if you criticize a player, his agent will ensure that you are never called for any meeting, any talk, anything. The agent comes in between, and the players have also realized that they can manipulate, and that's the bad or the sad part of journalism today. So what we actually are seeing today, which is very, very unfortunate, is that there's a lot of PR journalism going on rather than hardcore cricket writing.
Yes, but Vedam, I have a further question on this. The title of the book, courage, conviction, these are very striking words. The word cricket itself in the English language has a very specific meaning, which encompasses scruples, dignity, conviction, courage, justice, fairness, team spirit, all kinds of things. When you say it's not cricket, it meant something then. I don't think that saying carries the same kind of weight today that it did in the past. You mentioned, for instance, in your book, like you said, you mentioned that historic match when G.R. Vishwanath called back Taylor and asked him, because G.R. Vishwanath always walked, and he called him back to play. And now that kind of thing would be considered foolish. Although you mentioned that nobody ever blamed him for that, because people who watch cricket understood the meaning of the word cricket. Okay, I have another dimension to come to, but we will start with this. That cricket meant something more than just sports. It meant a certain attitude to life itself. A character, for instance. You think there has been an erosion of that over time?
Prakash, very interesting that you asked this question of me. And I was also thinking of this right through. And if you look at the book, the very first chapter in the book is the Bodyline series. Why I use the Bodyline series is to tell people that this so-called gentlemanliness went out of the window even before the World War. Even before the World War, it went out of the window. Only thing is, we didn't recognize it. There are instances in the book where I quoted where Jardine never wanted to refer to Bradman by his name. He used to abuse him all the time, and he expected all his players to call him, dastardly names, not really by his name. And those days, if you were a gentleman, you would not bowl down the leg side. If you were a gentleman, you would not do the leg theory. There were a lot of things if you were a gentleman. But Jardine ensured that he wanted to win at all costs. And he was not bothered about the niceties. The tragedy of the game really now is, in 2000, exactly what you said about being gentlemen, there is a spirit of the game. What we call a spirit of the game got encoded into the laws of the game. Otherwise, it was not written, but it was always taken for granted that if you were a gentleman, you would not do X, Y, Z things. But unfortunately, in 2000, that had to be encoded into it, because I think somewhere down the line, people decided that, the win at all costs was more important than just playing the game. And I don't know how much of it is because of commercialization, because there's a question of values. There are team values, there are individual values, there are moral values, and it all depends on what setup you come from. The team values can be inculcated by the team, by the coach, by the manager, by the management, by the administration. But the individual values of cricket are something that has to spring in A, from you, and B, from the ecosystem that you came in. The ecosystem had to enforce certain individual values that the game itself didn't enforce on you, or the team itself didn't enforce on you. And when you quoted the Vishwanath instance, and that's this classic example of the individual values. He's not bothered whether he's winning or losing. The outcome didn't matter. But he says, I could never have lived with it. When I knew he was not out, I didn't want to win like that or lose like that or whatever. He said the outcome didn't matter. I just had to call him back, and I did it.
Ramnarayan, I want to further this, elaborate more on this question. I want to give you an anecdote. Before the third umpire idea came into being, that you could do video reviews of runouts and stumpings, for instance. Azharuddin was playing this one-day series with England, and he had scored a century, and he had been run out in a match. And but although the trials of the video cameras were happening, it was still not inside the system. So you could see that he was run out, but the umpires couldn't judge, and the batsman got the benefit of the doubt. So in the second match, he again scored a century in a one-day match in that series. And then they said, but the umpire sees it at this speed, and, he cannot judge it as quickly as well as a slow motion camera. What do you think? And David Gower was actually in the commentary box. And David Gower said this. He said, look, you've played cricket, haven't you? And the commentator said, yes. Then you always know, he said. To me, that's a striking thing. It's a great example of what Vedav just said. And Ramnarayan, you must have seen in your time, playing with Pataudi. I'm saying you must have seen the gallantry, the chivalrous nature that cricket had those days. Why do you think it went wrong? Is it a general thing, decline of values in our society, or is it something specific that happened with the commercialization and this visual exploitation, audiovisual exploitation of the game?
That's probably partly the answer. But I think such gentlemen were always in a minority, even in the past. Why not? He mentioned Vishwanath, and I remembered a very nice joke. A couple of years ago, I met Vishwanath. He was being felicitated, and V.V. Kumar said, Vishy always walks. But Vishy said, no, only when I was out, he said. So it reminded me of EMS Nubiribar. One journalist asked him, sir, do you always stammer? He said, no, only when I talk. He said so.
Yeah.
So, I think gentlemen, probably there were more of them in the past. And even today, chivalry is not completely dead. You remember that wonderful Flintoff at the end of that Test match, 2005 Test match, and Brett Lee was, almost in tears, sat down after losing the match, sat down on the wicket, and then he came and patted him and all that. There are still some people who have this sporting spirit, and it's, of course, definitely there's a whole idea of saying I play the game hard. There's some confusion there. Playing the game does not mean you cheat, or does not mean that you are not generous to the opponent. But that is the problem, because people get pumped up by all that aggro that you show on the field. I think that is one of the causes. There was hardly any aggro when we were playing that you did not demonstrate. Everyone is supposed to demonstrate for television. But absolutely right. I think television has made a huge impact on that. Earlier, Vedam has watched some Chandrasekhar or quietly walking off, almost feeling embarrassed that they took a wicket. But today, it's completely different. You take a wicket after a man scores 200 and you go running around the field. So I think television is, you are right, television has played a major role. And commerce, of course, that's definitely has its share of the blame. I think people like Rahul Dravid and they keep I think they are very good role models for youngsters, and I'm very hopeful that sort of thing will come back now. I think he has been a great role model, and today he's mentoring a lot of young cricketers, and even Anil Kumble is one of those. I keep saying wherever I get a chance, I keep saying that these two people are real role models for young cricketers. So there is hope, I think.
Ramnarayan ji, I want to ask you another question. The thing is, in many languages of India, as in English, the word play is something we use for both performing art and sport. And there is role play in that, which is why you give them character. You call somebody the wall. Because you do that because it's about character. It's in that Simon and Garfunkel number. He says, referring to that to the great baseball player. It says, where are you, Joe DiMaggio? a nation turns its lonely eyes to you. See, it's because in a moment, when somebody's on 96, somebody you love, and somebody who's going to make that big difference to your winning or losing, at 96, he gets out and, he makes that walk back to that pavilion. A nation mounts, it's such a huge burden to place, on the player. And, to carry that kind of weight on their shoulders, if they've not been equipped with this great kind of ethical education, isn't that a big problem as well? Because they catch them very young, and they're shown the temptations of the world, and it's a big burden on them.
But I want to say two things about it. One is that I think at the NCAA, National Cricket Academy, there is some attempt to educate the youngsters on ethics and all that. So they have started addressing those problems. Like they age cheaters, they can't get away with it anymore. This age group cricket is rife with cheating. So I think people like Rahul Dravid have taken it very seriously. Sorry if I keep bringing up the same name, but he is an icon worth following. So that sort of thing is being done, and yeah, you're right about that. And I think television again, television and the new media, all the new media, one of the worst things they have done, in my opinion, is partisanship in following cricket. You support India, you support, that's the only way people watch cricket now. I think that I have grown up appreciating cricketers from any part of the world, and today you have to be somebody's fan. You have to like Kohli, or you have to like the Babar Azam. You can't like both of them. It's that kind of thing. Even now, if you look at all the promos for India versus Australia, it's terrible. It's like war. And then this whole myth about how India-Pakistan matches are like war without bullets. I don't think that is a huge hype actually. There might be an occasion, but very often you find the players they are quite friendly to each other, the Indian and Pakistani players. So this
Thank
hyping
you.
up.
Thank you. Vedam, I want to ask you, because of what Ramnaran just said, very interestingly, that the terminology has moved from, what we could use in the world of performing arts to the arena of war. The terminology has changed. We see the same thing happening in the coverage of elections, for instance, in media. You've been a journalist for so many years, and that's how I know you. This whole coverage of elections of battleground states, and that has come into cricket also. And I think this it has been furthered with IPL to the point now that we're going there again, to the point where you can have 11 or 16 or 20 players, in a team, and with hardly anybody or nobody, in fact, from that city. So it becomes absurd. The partnership, a quick kind of absurd attitude. It doesn't even have any kind of community, evolutionary, organic grounding. So what do you think that happens with this kind of, if I may use the word, schizophrenia? Who are we then, when we play sport and we support it?
See, like somebody very correctly said, sport is war by another name, and that's very, very appropriate. And like I said, it's not just in sport. I think it's in every walk of life. But what has happened is attitudes have crystallized to such an extent. Now, take for instance, Chennai Super Kings. Now, teams like Chennai or Mumbai, they have built their team around the city. Now, that's not happened with something like RCB, it's Royal Challengers Bangalore. But I think there have been many instances when there was nobody from Bangalore and nobody really adopted it as a city, and it was used more for marketing whatever goods that they were making. They were marketing that, and for them it was a great asset to be marketing that. And they found players, or they bought players whom they thought would aid the marketing of their product. And so it was not really a sort of a loyalty to the city, like somebody like Chennai were able to really imbibe in virtually the whole population, or Mumbai for that matter. So I think the marketing people took charge and handled it differently. What is right, what is wrong, we don't know, because RCB may be very convinced that their method of doing it is absolutely right. But what we want to go away from is the city-based sport is actually more something to do with club football, or club football basically would be the right example, except that somebody like Manchester has got two teams. But otherwise, a lot of things that we see in the IPL is actually borrowed from the EPL. And this is a classic example where city loyalties and other things come into being. And the funny part is, when they even decided which states or which cities have to have teams, Calcutta didn't even figure in that, because they had to do a whole lot of mathematical calculations, economical calculations, spending power of the people, spending ability of the people, and the decision that they would spend. You need to spend, and you need to keep your purses open and things like that. And the number of young people, Calcutta didn't even figure in that. In fact, was overtaken by teams like Lucknow and a whole lot of others. But they couldn't ignore the east of India, so they had to keep East India in the mind, when that's how the teams got picked up. But as you really know, besides there were just two or three cities for which there were bidders. There were no bidders for many other cities, and they were actually pushed. XYZ was pushed into buying teams, and that's how it went. But I don't think anybody believed that IPL would be a success. But the very fact that it has survived 12 years and is today the biggest money spinner for the BCCI tells its own story, that sometimes when we stumble so well that we hit the gold.
Talk about serendipity. So, but I want to return to the question of courage and conviction. When you look at a player like, say, Mohinder Amarnath, who went with Kapil Dev's team to play in the West Indies, and he was a compulsive hooker, and the thing is, they kept bowling short at him, and we could only listen to that commentary on radio late at night. And you just marveled at this guy who could stand there and take it for so long, and then they famously went on to win that World Cup. Or you take, somebody like Steve Waugh, who, in my opinion, I'm no expert, was nowhere as talented as this twin, but the way he could stand and kind of feel and take those blows and bat for Australia. Or you take the 1976, tour of the West Indies in India. Actually, I watched that match, the very first Test match in Bangalore at Chinnaswamy Stadium. With all these new players, with Andy Roberts, with Richards, with Greenidge, with Kalicharan, and you thought, how will we ever play this? And Pataudi is given a team where the highest score is Kanitkar or somebody like that, who puts all who's lucky with edges going to the third man, and that's how he scored 40 or 42 runs. And then talk about the conviction that he stays in that game, in that series, and brings it to a cliffhanger, that sixth match in Mumbai. You think that kind of spirit is there? Ramnarayan, I want to begin with you answering that. What did it take for Pataudi to be given that challenge? And I mean, how did he actually stand up to this great challenge?
No, for Tiger, as most of us call them, playing cricket itself was a huge challenge. After that incident in England, when he lost one eye, how many people can play cricket and he faced some people, and he was so modest about it. I never once talked about his own cricket when we were playing together, but that itself took great courage, and he came back as captain in that series because Ajit Wadekar retired after the disastrous 1974 tour. And Tiger was not in form. He had not played for some time. And when the board asked him to captain, he has said that he took it up because he felt that he owed it to India. he knew that, and he told them, "Yeah, I am ready to captain, but please don't expect me to bat." He told the selector, and they said, "Okay, you captain, you don't bat," because he didn't get runs in that series. And at the end of that series, I met him. We were watching a match together, and he said, I asked him, "Haven't you retired prematurely?" But I played with him only after he retired from Test cricket, and no, Ram, I don't want to be keeping in field because he did not see Roberts. He just did not see him, the pace at which he bowled. Because earlier he had no problems with pace. One eye managed pace rather well, but when the ball was tossed up, he had problems. That is where he really had. So he always got runs, more runs against pace. Not the fastest bowlers, but anything just below that, he was very comfortable. But now he couldn't see the ball. He was playing international cricket for 30,000 people, not being able to see the ball. Huge courage. And still led the team without scoring runs with, in a masterly fashion in that series. And unfortunately, the fairy tale didn't have a happy ending because in Bombay, Tribe decided to hammer us out of the game. This double century. Huge courage, Prakash.
Yes, absolutely. Vedant, that question of courage and conviction. I want to talk about your choice of stories that you wanted to include in the book. What dictated those choices?
See, actually, when you look at courage, I have put Pataudi as the most courageous act because when you look at it, there's Ian Chappell. I've quoted Ian Chappell in that. And Ian Chappell says a beautiful sentence. He says, try closing one eye and try and take a catch. Just try and take a catch with one eye closed, and you'll know how difficult it is. And here's a man with just one eye who actually played the fastest bowlers in the world and got runs of them. I think Pataudi got about 6 Test centuries. So Ian Chappell said the most courageous thing he ever did. And let's not forget those days, we didn't have helmets, we didn't have chest guards, we didn't have arm protectors, and a whole lot of protective gear that you have today. So I think Pataudi was the natural choice. Another person that I brought in over there was Karnataka's B.S. Chandrasekhar. Chandrasekhar, when I worked on an earlier book, he told me that his right hand, his right hand was polio afflicted, was so weak that he couldn't even take a glass of beer to his mouth. He says, by the time I lifted it and brought it somewhere near my chin, my hand used to shake uncontrollably. I could never. So he said, everything I learned to do with the left hand, and when you look back and think that somebody with that kind of a limitation not only played successfully for India, but was India's greatest match winner. And Chandra won matches not just in India, he won matches all over. He won matches for India in England. He won matches for India in New Zealand, in Australia. I mean, it was extraordinary that a man with his limitation could have done it. And you needed great courage to reinvent yourself and finally pull it off. Of course, I've also brought in the Australian Rick McCosker, who broke his jaw and ended up batting again. The conviction, I think the biggest thing that conviction, of course, you already spoken about G.R. Vishwanath recalling Taylor. But the biggest conviction for me there again is somebody like Rahul Dravid declaring the Indian innings closed with Sachin Tendulkar batting on 194 in Pakistan. That needed an extraordinary amount of conviction.
I saw that moment, watched that actually, and I saw Sachin's. I remember Sachin look up at a shock when he had someone.
I think
there are a couple of interesting things in this I'd like to tell you. That if Dravid's or Rahul's personal integrity was not as high as it is, people would have cast aspersions and affixed motives to what he did. But the funny part is nobody ever questioned his decision. They might have questioned the timing of his decision, but they never questioned why he did it when Sachin was 194 or cast aspersions. Now that's the kind of personal integrity he brought into the game, and that's what carried him through. Because at the end of the day, when these are kind of decisions if you take in a team, especially as a captain, the team can be split into 5, 6, 7, 8 different parts, and then there's no way that you can win it side. But on the other hand, what happened is the entire 11, I say entire 11 because I also include Tendulkar into it, the entire 11 got behind him, and we won the series against Pakistan for the first time ever. We would have never won this. First time ever in 50 years, we won a test in Pakistan. If a leader takes a decision which is not which people find, let's say he doesn't have personal integrity or they attach motives to it, then the team can fall apart. In any organization, it's not just in a cricket team, in any organization. But if it is taken as a selfless decision and for the good of the side, of good of the organization, then everybody else would actually join together and strengthen this. And this is what is actually brought out. People said if Dravid had declared with Sachin batting on 170, nobody would have questioned him. 160, 170. But he declared at 194 because he was not willing to forego that extra 5, 6 minutes, which he would have lost if he had to wait for Sachin to get the 100. But everybody decided that he means business. So this is what I meant by courage of conviction. There was courage shown by the others of the physical courage, the mental courage, but here there was somebody who was convinced that this is the way to go about it. And thanks to his personal integrity, he pulled it off.
It was also a good thing that we went on to win the match, though. No.
Yeah,
so,
first time in 50 years. And first time ever that we're winning in Pakistan.
Yeah. So I want see somebody here. Actually, I just saw in the chat. Somebody said, "Why moan and groan about courage in in a game that's played only by 12 nations?" I've heard this kind of thing before. Actually, if you change that number from 12 nations to how many people play cricket in the world compared to other sport, I think you can get some strange numbers there. Actually, you'll not feel the same. I think. See, actually, but however, what matters most is that you have chosen to concentrate on cricket. And I think for a lot of us, as we grew up, cricket was the main game. And we got these ideas of courage, character, everything from this sport. And it's important for the nation that we are born in. And it matters to us, and which is why IPL is so successful. So I'll tell you, what do you think made you cling on to cricket with this kind of fervor and passion over so many years when the game has changed? I think we belong to some really small minority that actually watches test matches, now. So why do you think you stayed with this? I'm going to ask Ramnarayan as well that same question.
Okay. Because I love this game and absolutely love cricket because where else can you find so many ups and downs, so many variations, different kinds of bowlers, so many different kinds of pitches. No other sport has it. And no other sport can you get killed on the field. I mean, except boxing maybe. In how many sports can you get killed on the field? And we're talking about courage. Doesn't matter how many nations played. Even 2 days ago, I think Steve Smith had a concussion test, and it's a great game in so many ways. It involves skill, it involves sportsmanship, it involves courage. We're talking about courage. May I go back to that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, please, sir.
There's a fantastic story. I'm sure Vedam has read it. Jay has read it. This was a tour of New Zealand or South Africa. The New Zealand team touring South Africa in the 50s. And New Zealand were the weakest team in the world. And South Africa had these fast bowlers, Adcock and Hine. They were really quick and they were really nasty fellows, bowling at your head and everything. And I think South Africa made a huge score on the first innings. New Zealand were trying to avoid the follow-on. The follow-on. Bert Sutcliffe, their left-handed batsman, he was playing brilliantly. Wickets were falling at the other end, I think. And he had been hit on the head, no helmet, nothing. And he was bleeding. And he had already been hitting the fast bowlers for 6-4, 6-4. Amazing kind of batting because he was desperate and there was no point in playing defensive cricket. And he goes into the pavilion and comes back. And according to the person who wrote on that match, came back looking like a Sikh, a Sardar, because he had a turban on. No helmet, nothing. He came back and he still batted and he came back and hit the fast bowler for a six. In the meantime, the eighth wicket had fallen or something like that. There was a young fast bowler whose name I don't remember now, name starts with a B. He had gone to the hotel to leave for New Zealand because he had heard the radio news that his girlfriend, his fiancée, had died in a train accident. He's gone back and he's ready to leave and he's watching the match on television or listening to the radio, and he realizes that he's needed there to save the follower. He comes back and then Sutcliffe goes to the boundary line and brings the boy along, puts his arm around him. He's just 21 years old, this young man. And they walk in, the entire South African team, the entire crowd applaud them as they go all the way back. You know what he does? First ball he faces, he hits it for six, this young man. And then, of course, some brave batting. Finally, I don't think they avoided the follow on. But it's one of the most courageous things that happened. He didn't stay back for the second innings. New Zealand lost the match, but Bert Sutcliffe made 100 or 90 or something. One of the most brave, one of the greatest acts of courage on a cricket field. Long, long ago. Sorry if I'm a little, I've digressed a bit.
No. No, I'm going to, if you let me indulge, I have a small story to tell. You know, when it's there in Mike Brearley's book, that when Brian Close was the captain of the English team, you know, it is actually practice, a common practice to send the youngest player to go and field at forward short leg. But Brian Close was a crazy guy, and you know, he, as captain, he stood at forward short leg in an era when there were no helmets or similar protective gear, and this batsman actually pulled the ball, and it hit Brian Close on the head, and it popped up and went to Point a gully, and the catch was taken. And somebody said, "Are you crazy? What, it had hit you on the temple?" Then it was thought and said it would have gone to second slip instead.
I think
So,
I think I was shouting to the fielder to catch it also. Yeah, it did. And there is you can find a clip where he's facing Michael Holding, and one of the most torrid overs you hit all over. Amazing courage, and he was nearly 40 and 37 or something. Yeah, that's great. And you know, sorry, Jay has written about Anil Kumble, Malcolm Marshall, some superb acts of courage on a cricket field. Kumble with his fractured jaw and bowling that over before he leaves for India. He took the wicket of Brian Lara during that innings. And one of the most, and then Rick McCosker, of course, and Malcolm Marshall with one arm in a plaster, batted with one hand, and then came bowled and won the match for West Indies. How many wickets did he take? 7 or something like that.
Amazing.
Amazing. And you know, this is what makes the game so great. And no matter how few countries play it, I think it's a fabulous. And every time today, even the tail end is not spared. Bounces are bowled at you, and every amount of courage they show, the batsmen, it's unbelievable. No, Ishant Sharma or whoever it is not spared because he's a tailender. There used to be a code earlier that you didn't bounce at tailenders. All that is gone today. Yeah.
So Vedam, I'll let you conclude this with what made you write the book. Really, that's the question we should have started with, but I'm keeping that for the end. What made you write this book? What do you think moved you to actually pick?
Actually,
by the title, what made you write this book?
yeah. Actually, if I tell you what made me write the book, and you'd find it very funny, but I have very, very clear thoughts on this. Actually, there is an information overload, absolute information overload today. But what has happened, the downside is your attention spans have become shorter and shorter. You're not going to read or many people are not going to read a 400-page book, because the people who read, yes, they will read, But a whole lot of people will not read a 400-page book. It's like the movies. Yeah, I think that Mughal-e-Azam was about 3.5 hours or 4 hours. There have been so many movies which used to take so long. But today, if somebody makes a movie worth, I mean, even if it is more than 90 minutes, nobody's going to sit and watch. The attention spans have become really short. So I decided that instead of writing a book on cricket, which had a common thread running from page 1 to page 400, I would look at it as a number of short stories. People would read short stories, but a number of short stories. So if you really look at it, there are 40 odd short stories in this. But what I thought was, it should not just be a short story for the sake of a short story. It should be a short introduction into the game. But that particular instance or incident, which I keep calling as iconic instance or incident, should have led to a change in the laws of the game, or in the protocol of the game, or into the format of the game. So actually, if you look at it right from Bradman to whatever, there's always some change. And that change in the laws or whatever, there's a classic thing about Vishwanath and J.R. Vishwanath and Asif Iqbal going out for the toss. And Asif Iqbal actually tells him, we don't need the toss. You take it. You have won the toss. But she says no. And Vishwanath told me personally, he said, look, that's my first test as a captain. I don't want to do all these things. I said, let's go out and toss. And this was at the Eden Gardens. And the convention those days was the home team person, the host, would toss the coin, and whoever won the toss would pick up the coin. Now, when you pick up the coin, it sends a message to the dressing room, to the spectators, as to who had won the toss. You didn't have all these various communications that you have today. But the minute Vishwanath tossed the coin, Asif Iqbal was a tall, loose-limbed guy. He quickly moved to the coin, picked it up. Vishy had not even seen the coin, and he said, "Congrats, you have won the toss." So actually, he broke two accepted protocols that the winner of the toss is supposed to pick up the coin, and he just picked it up. And every match-fixing inquiry that is there into it speaks of this particular toss. So then Vishy told me that, I didn't want a controversy. So he's telling me I won the toss. Can I tell him, no, I've not won the toss? He said, I just took it. But today that can't happen because the match referee will toss the coin. The cameraman will come along, and a whole lot of other things. So even small protocols like this have changed. And they have changed for the better. So that kind of conning somebody into saying he has won the toss cannot take place. So a lot of like Bradman, the Bodyline series brought in the laws of the game. If they changed not more than two people behind the popping crease can field or the leg side. So everything. I look at Kerry Packer. Kerry Packer's Packer series was the most contentious, controversial cricket ever played in the history of the game. But 3 years down the line, after that, look at the number of changes. Cricket was dying actually. And today, suddenly, you've got two white balls, you're playing with white balls, you're playing with colored clothing, you have drop-in pitches. You've got the inner circle, the outer circle, markings, a whole lot of things. Actually, Kerry Packer was good for cricket. If you ask me now, when you look back and see it, Kerry Packer was very good for cricket. And like I said, entire formats have changed, entire protocols have changed, and in many cases, laws have changed. So I think each of the chapters actually ensures that it leads to somewhere. It's not just in the wind, but it leads to somewhere. And that is why, of course, the original idea was to write a book full of controversies, but then I thought it will be too dark. You can't write a dark book. Sport is also about people winning, people losing, a lot of triumphs, a lot of people beating the odds and coming up, and I thought we should include this courage, conviction, and controversy. And I think it's worked out well as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Ramnaran, you were saying something.
No, I just wanted to, I wanted to ask him about this because this book you can pick up and read anywhere, from anywhere, but there is that link. You can read any chapter because it's like a short story, as you said. But this is a brilliant explanation. I didn't think about it, that all those controversies led to it, or led to a change in the game. That's a wonderful idea that you had. I must congratulate you that you really succeeded in doing that. It's a terrific book. It is not a meaningless, narrative of cheating and controversy and all that. But it makes a point everywhere. And it's easy to pick up any chapter and read it, but also see the connections between each chapter. And one last point I want to make is about the Asif Iqbal cause. Uh, I'm a little sorry that he was from Hyderabad where I played. Okay. Can I take a break? Sorry. I'll take a 2-minute break if you don't mind.
Okay, so Vedam, thank you so much. It's such a privilege to talk to Ramnarayan. And I'm going to read the book over the next few days, and I'll catch up with you in our city, a drink hopefully. And I would like to thank MMA again and hand this over to Group Captain Vijay Kumar to make the concluding remarks or say something he wants to himself. Thank you very much.
Maybe you would like to say some questions. We have more than 1,200 views on our social media from Facebook, Twitter, and our webcast. We also have our own MMA webcast. So there are some questions, and there, Mr. Prakash, you could have seen some questions come on the chat box too. Maybe you would like to have a look at that.
There are questions. Let me see.
There are more statements than questions.
Yeah, I know. See, somebody's asked, Venkatesh and Seshadri, as why single out IPL? Even in clubs like Chelsea or Liverpool, there's no local or even an England player. I'll ask Vedam to answer this. Actually, I think that, it's more important for us to be drawing examples from our world, and we have enough references from childhood till now on the wars of the roses and stuff like that. I think we should know something about ourselves more. I would like to draw examples from our lives. But what do you think, Vedam?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we need to go around aping and doing what X, Y, or Z is doing, and we should find our own equation into how we're going to handle it. And I think the original idea that you have only 4 foreigners and the rest of them in the playing 11 should be Indians, and then you should go into the catchment area, get players from the catchment area. Those are good rules, and we should have stuck to it. But I think we didn't stick to it because the franchises exerted a lot of pressure on the BCCI, and they eased it off. But I think those were very good rules. You had a lot of people from the catchment areas coming in, and you were picking up cricketers from the catchment area. But I think this is a cycle, because as we go along, the loyalty would be to the city team, and we'd get into it. But I don't think we need to follow a template set by EPL or anybody else into this. But you're absolutely right, Prakash. I think we need to find our own equation, and we've got enough examples to find our own equation.
I know there is this remark from Uday Shankar. Great panel discussion, wonderful thoughts, sir. Many thanks. Just eager to understand that now the game of cricket has transformed drastically. Show off and personal achievements have taken place, and it is prime focus of nation's pride, patriotism. It's so painful for a cricket lover. Just one example, Anil Kumble being the coach just wanted discipline in the team, but the board supported Kohli and brought the people like Ravi Shastri as a coach. Kindly share your point of view on this. Thanks. Vedam, I want to ask one more question. I just want to be clear on this, because is my understanding wrong? Isn't it more important that the 20% or 25% or 30% of the population of this country, which is below 20 or 22 years of age, should be physically fit, should have a culture of team spirit and of character, of physical strength and ability, of actually working, of getting an aesthetic of sacrifice. All these are important things. And the fact that you have iconic leaders who play for the nation or for the state or for a very valued club team, they come on television. They're icons. They could be inspirational, but the thing is, the inspiration should be about sports itself. As Ramnarayan said, that we need a culture of sports in this country, not people sitting with a computer and playing games. So I mean, I'm just like adding to this question. What do you think, Vedam? Your thoughts on this?
Absolutely, Prakash, that you're asking me this. Sometime next year, maybe in the first part of next year, I'm actually coming out with a book called The Magical Years. In fact, I've already worked quite a bit on it, about 80% of it. One of the thrust of that book is exactly what you said, that we're sitting on a health time bomb, whether it is diabetes or blood pressure or whatever. And all that is because we are not a sporting nation. We have so many youngsters, so many young people, the percentage of young people in India, I've quoted some figures, and that is far, far, far higher than anybody else, anywhere else in the world. And we should not be a market for the pharmaceutical companies, we should actually be fit and get into some sort of fitness, especially the young crowd. And that's what I've been trying to drive in that. But what you're saying is absolutely right. But do you want me to answer on this Kumble thing, or uh,
I think you should, because he's taken the trouble to put that.
I understand, because there are a lot of things that I can't say in public. It's not. It's very painful for me also to talk on public. But let's understand one thing: just because you're a great cricketer does not mean that you're a great administrator at all. And you cannot say that there is no discipline in this Indian team. Believe me, today every single Indian cricketer, maybe from the age of 10 or even younger, wants to be a Virat Kohli. And Virat Kohli is absolutely a no-nonsense cricketer. His best friend might have been Yuvraj Singh, but when he didn't pass the yo-yo test, he ensured that he was not part of the team. So was Raidu. He was there, but he was scoring runs, but he didn't pass the yo-yo test, and he was not there. Virat has made certain things non-negotiable, and I think we should admire him for that. We may not like the way he leads the team, or we may not like his aggression, but there are a lot of things that he's doing and a lot of discipline that he's enforcing in the team, which is unimaginable even maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So I think he's gotten into a different mindset, but he's also ensuring that it works. And as long as it works, I think we should back him to the hilt, rather than try and divide the team on who is not there or who is there. There is a captain who's trying to build a team, and I think we should all help or all be part of it and ensure that their team is built. Right through our history, we had enough people driving wedges between teams and empires and kingdoms, and I don't think that should continue with Indian cricket. We are now in a good place, and we should continue to be in a good place as long as possible.
Thank you, Vedam. Actually, before I again hand it back to Group Captain Vijay, I have a great Virat Kohli quote that I think is very impressive. It's not original. It's a paraphrase of similar quotes, but I think he kind of came upon it originally as a self-realization. He said, somebody asked him, how come when you first came, you were not playing like this? Why do you play in such a driven manner these days? And he said, I suddenly realized that I could become the best version of myself. He said, I think that's a great thought to carry with you. So, Ramnaran, any final words before Group Captain Vijay takes over?
Or you have any question to Vedam, Mr. Ram, because you have so much knowledge about cricket, you can really ask Vedam, or for that matter, even Prakash. Over to you, Mr. Ram.
No, it's been a very enjoyable discussion. I think you can go on for another couple of hours, actually. About the captain, clash between a captain and a coach. These things are inevitable sometimes. But I think Kohli is learning and evolving. He made a few mistakes in matters of team selection. For example, Cheteshwar Pujara. And then he is corrected. He's done a lot of course correction as he has grown as a captain. People like Ravindra Jadeja, who used to be kept out, they are now, Jadeja is almost a certainty even in the Test 11. And I think he's growing as a captain. He has made mistakes. He's very aggressive and makes some preferred people who played with intent. That is his favorite expression. So he thought India didn't need Cheteshwar Pujara and the other Ajinkya Rahane in the Test 11. But he has realized their value, that everybody cannot go out there and bat like Kohli. So I think it's a learning curve for him, and I'm sure 10 years down the road he will look back on that Kumble episode and think probably we could have acted differently. So I think that is my only observation on that. And Vedam Ajay, I don't know what to call you, Vedam Ajay, because I know Jai Shankar's elder brother, Hariharan, we played cricket together. And Vedam we both have that name. But anyway, uh, it's amazing that you've done this, taking the trouble of researching so much. I mean, I really congratulate you on the amount of research you must have done. The most painful thing to do in a cricket book. And, also because very poorly documented, especially the past. It's very difficult to dig out information. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
So,
Thank you, sir. I think since another 5 minutes more left, I'll take two questions. A lot of viewers who are just come from the Facebook viewer. He said you mentioned even good morning to the player need to be, it has to go through official agent. Now, why money is playing such an important role in a game of cricket, which the whole nation loves it? Is it true in other countries too, sir? What is the remedy for this, if you have one?
No, actually, that quote was it's a throwaway line. I'm not really serious, but it's really become, it's an agent's world, and agents have shown them how to make a lot of money. Because I mean, I don't know how many of you follow golf. I know, Captain, you do. Group captain, you play. I know that. But look at it this way: Justin Johnson, he made $15 million in just one tournament. $15 million was the prize money in just one tournament. And we say Indian cricketers make a lot of money. But look at, that's about what I think if you convert it into rupees, it's about 110, 115 crores in just one tournament he has made. Maybe let's say Virat Kohli from the board, he may not even be making 14 or 15 crores per year from the board for his playing. But from his endorsements, he probably is making 400 to 500 crores from his endorsements. So the playing money is very little, but the endorsement money is huge, massive. It is like the movie industry. A guy could have a flop movie, but the endorsements he would get would run into crores and crores of rupees. So I think there has been a paradigm shift in sport throughout the world. And, just to digress slightly from cricket, whoever thought even 3 or 4 years ago that kabaddi players would earn crores?
yeah.
Whoever thought that? Kabaddi was something which was played somewhere on the Maidan. We don't even know which Maidan they play. Today, kabaddi players are earning crores of rupees. And that's basically, I think, a lot of thanks to the television companies which want to show a lot of Indian content. So badminton, kabaddi, football, Indian football, I think it's changing. And along with it, when some new money comes in, there would be agents stepping in, and they would decide how to run it and how to monetize your name, how to monetize your brand. And these are all parts of that gimmick. I suppose in time it will disappear, but I really don't have any hope for the next at least 3-4 years of players becoming wise to the fact, or agents becoming wise to the fact. Because I know for a fact that many of the agents already decide beforehand that X is a dangerous journalist, Y is somebody whom we can fly, so we can handle him. That kind of thing they already worked out, and that's sad for Indian sport, because the reader or the viewer is not getting his due. Because when I say we're not getting his due, he's not getting the whole 9 yards. He's not getting the big picture, only because there is an agent out there who is actually guarding his principle.
Great, sir. One last question before we let you go is, I know you said agent, wherever money is involved, there'll be agents in India or any part of the world, actually, I suppose. There's a question from a YouTube viewer. He says the UK-based company has designed the entire biosecure bubble for IPL. What could be the consequences of IPL biosecure bubble breach? Do you mean say they'll get called off and the people get scared, they'll withdraw? What do you think is going to happen if the breach happens?
See, actually, what they've done a very good job getting this UK company, for one good reason, because They have already done it against Australia, against Pakistan, against Ireland. So they've got a lot of rich experience. They have tweaked it around and made it very, they have a rich experience. Now, if somebody breaches the bio bubble, and it happened in England where Geoffrey Archer went to meet his girlfriend and he was dropped from the test and kept away and had to be quarantined again before he was allowed to step into the bubble. Now, they all have those wristbands they have to wear, except when they are playing. The rest of the time, they have to wear that wristband, which I guess it's got radio frequency or what it is. It tells where they are, where they have gone, what is the distance from somebody who's afflicted with COVID or etc. What is the exposure they've had in terms of time, etc., etc. So I think they're taking it very seriously, which is very good news. And the first player who breaches it, irrespective of who it is, will actually be thrown out, and that's good. If once he gets thrown out, it sends the right message across, because it's big money. The board stands to make 4,200 crores from just this one IPL. That's very big money, because without that money, we cannot run Indian cricket. Now, I'll just make one quick point I'll make. Whereas Australia and England, these are two big countries. Australia and England, all their sporting infrastructure, virtually all, their sporting infrastructure is constructed by their governments, by their local authorities. But that is not the case in India. The cricket stadium has to be constructed by the local state association. Today there is money, which is why whether it is Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or wherever, there are a lot of stadia being constructed all over the state, But this is not the case in Australia or England. The state does the job. You just have to go there, plug and play. That's it. But here you have to create the infrastructure, you have to pump in the money and do everything. So those 4,200 crores, without that, Indian cricket is actually sunk if we don't get hold of that money.
Great insights. I remember Virat Kohli also said to his team that you come here to play cricket, please no breach of bio bubble. And he got out of them on the first day. I read in the newspaper. Thank you so much, sir. It's been a fascinating evening. Once again, Vedam, many congratulations on your book, and so happy that you choose MMA to launch your book. On behalf of the MMA Management Committee and all the viewers who watch this program, during this pandemic time, there could be nothing better gift than what we want to give you. We want to present over 200 face masks to the poor people so needy around. What we do, we go around and go to all the NGOs and present this mask so that it can be used by all the people who are in need of them, and we also educate them. This is what our team from MMA goes to different places and do this. And on behalf of you, we do this, and I'm quite sure and I really appreciate your consent, what you're given for us to do this. And thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you this evening. Thank you, Mr. Prakash. We would like to have you sometime to speak on a different subject, on different theme. It will be a pleasure to host you again. Madam, keep in touch, and it's a pleasure. Mr. Ram, I think we'll meet again. We live in Chennai. The moment everything social distancing will open up, you must come to MMA. It's a beautiful place. You will really like it. We got a wonderful library. We do a lot of digital transformation initiatives, and thanks so much. Thank each one of you. Also thank Westland and Sweta particularly for connecting us to Vedam, and any of the best author comes, the first choice goes to MMA. That way we are a preferred destination for Westland, and our idea is to bring in the best of the thoughts available around India to take it to the MMA members. Thank you, viewers. A large number you have come and watch this program live from our social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also our MMA webcast, and also our MMA radio. MMA radio also got some 30 numbers today. They're not bad at all. I remember once upon a time only the running competition used to be so popular. Thanks so much, and stay safe, stay healthy until we meet again. Bye-bye and good night to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.